Welcome to our deep dive into interesting topics. Today we're diving into the Huawei Ascend 910 NoD. That's a brand new AI accelerator from Huawei. Our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack what makes this chip tick, why it's significant, and what its arrival signals for the future of AI hardware, especially when you think about the current global tech landscape. We'll be pulling all this insight from a report that brings together various articles and expert analysis, and the author of this insightful report is Jörg-Owe. So at its core, the Ascend 910D, it's being positioned as a direct competitor to NVIDIA's H100, which is, well, a real powerhouse in the AI chip world. So let's get into this competition and see what it actually means for how AI is developing.
Okay, yeah. And really get the buzz around the 910D, you kind of look at the bigger picture first.
Mm-hmm.
Its development isn't happening in isolation. Right? What's really driving this is the set of U.S. sanctions. These have limited China's access to cutting-edge chip technology. Think of it like this. If you can't buy the best ingredients, you start figuring out how to grow your own.
Right.
You adapt.
Exactly. And that's essentially what's happening here. This situation is a major catalyst for China's drive towards being self-sufficient in semiconductors. And the Ascend 910D is like a prime example of that push.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Necessity driving innovation. Now, the report mentions that this chip is built on 7mm process. For those of us, who aren't chip experts, what's the key takeaway about this 7mm figure? Why is it something we should pay attention to?
Well, the key takeaway is that achieving a 7mm process, that's a significant technical win for China, particularly because they have limited access to something called EUV lithography.
EUV, okay.
Think of EUV as the super advanced tool used to make even smaller and more powerful chips. So while companies like NVIDIA are using these more advanced tools, the fact that Huawei, Sesmic really, can produce a 7mm chip under these constraints really highlights their progress and their resilience. It's like building a really impressive structure with, let's say, slightly less advanced tools, still a major feat. Okay, gotcha. Now, Huawei has made some pretty bold statements about the 910D. I heard they even suggested it could outperform NVIDIA's H100 in specific AI tasks, but the report throws a bit of cold water on that, right?
It does. It raises a really important question about those performance claims. While Huawei might see advantages in, very specific, maybe narrowly defined AI tasks, the critical point is that we just don't have independent third-party benchmarks to verify any of this.
Oh, okay. No independent proof yet.
Exactly. So for now, there's a real question mark hanging over its actual competitive standing against the H100, which, has a proven track record.
Right.
We really have to take those claims with a pinch of salt until we see that independent verification.
Right. So while they're clearly aiming to play in the big leagues of AI processors, it sounds like there's still a significant gap to close with the current champion.
Precisely. The report makes it clear there are likely to be noticeable performance differences compared to NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to remember it's not just about raw processing speed. Not at all.
What else then?
Well, things like the software tools available, the ecosystem, and how many developers are actually using a chip. Those are just as important, maybe more so in the long run. NVIDIA has a massive head start here with its CUDA platform.
All right, CUDA.
Which supports something like 90% of AI frameworks. That established software ecosystem, it's a huge advantage, very difficult to overcome quickly.
Okay, let's dive into the chip itself a bit more then. What are some of the key technical details about the 910D that give us a sense of its capabilities?
Sure. What's particularly interesting, I think, is its hybrid design. The Ascend 910D uses these things called DaVinci 3.0 cores, combined with enhanced vector units. Think of these as specialized processing engines, sort of optimized for different kinds of AI calculations. And this combination is reported to give it a 25% jump in performance compared to Huawei's previous chip, the 910C.
A decent jump.
Yeah. And it also uses high bandwidth memory, HBM2E memory, offering a whopping 1,600 gigahertz bandwidth.
Wow, 1,600 gigabits.
Yeah, this high bandwidth is like having super wide pipes to feed data incredibly quickly to those processing cores, which is, essential for demanding AI workloads.
So how do those technical specs translate into real-world AI performance? What kind of numbers are we looking at when it comes to training AI models?
Good question. When we look at the system level, the projection is that the 910D might achieve about 60% of the H100's training performance.
60%. So not quite there.
Right. Not a complete match. But the report suggests this level of performance could still be sufficient for many of China's domestic AI needs. It's about hitting their targets.
Okay.
It's also worth pointing out where the H100 still has a clear edge, especially in something called FP16 processing and that impressive memory bandwidth we just talked about. Oh, and the 910D's power consumption, its TDP, is estimated to be between 350 and 450 watts. And performance per watt. It achieves around 0.8 TFLOPS per watt in FP16 performance.
Okay, interesting numbers. Price is always a big factor in any market, though. How does the Ascend 910D compare to the H100 in terms of cost?
Yes. This is where things get really strategic, I think. The Ascend 910D is priced at around $15,000, but that's specifically for the Chinese domestic market.
$15,000 compared to
the H100's price tag, which is often around $30,000, sometimes more.
Wow, half the price.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The strategy here seems pretty clear. Offer a much more affordable alternative. It's designed to attract those Chinese AI companies that might be facing restrictions on buying U.S. chips. It's a price point aimed squarely at encouraging domestic adoption.
Makes sense. Beyond the numbers and price, what can you tell us about the actual physical design, the internal structure of the 910D?
Well, it uses advanced packaging technology, chiplets, essentially.
Chiplets.
Yeah, it basically means they're putting multiple smaller silicon chips, or dies, very closely together in a single package. This boosts performance and efficiency compared to one big chip. And its internal architecture is quite complex. It uses cube, vector, and scalar processing units, all working in parallel.
Parallel processing, key for AI.
Absolutely. That parallel operation is fundamental to handling the massive amounts of calculations needed for AI.
We've talked a lot about the hardware, which is fascinating, but the software that runs on these chips, that's just as vital, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Maybe even more so in some ways.
So what's Huawei's strategy on the software front?
They're heavily invested in their MindSpore framework. This is their core software platform. And a major goal, a really big one, is to make it compatible with code written for NVIDIA's CEDA platform.
CEDA compatibility. That sounds smart.
It is smart, strategically. Think of it like trying to make software that can run easily on different brands of computers. It lowers the barrier for developers to switch. However, and this is a significant challenge, the adoption of MindSpore has been, well, slower compared to the CEDA ecosystem.
Which is just so established.
Exactly. CEDA is incredibly well established. It has years of development, a vast library of tools, optimization, and a huge community of developers who are familiar with it. Building that kind of software foundation from the ground up, it just takes a lot of time and sustained effort.
Right. So considering all of this, the hardware progress, the pricing, the software challenge, what's the general feeling in the tech industry? What are analysts saying about the Ascend 910D's potential impact?
The overall view seems to be a mix of acknowledging Huawei's progress while remaining cautious. It's definitely seen as a potential competitor, especially within China. That seems clear. But globally, there are other factors at play. Things like, well, trust concerns related to Huawei in some markets. And, as we said, the lack of independent performance data creates uncertainty. So most analysts suggest that while the 910D is a notable achievement, a definite step forward for China, it's probably unlikely to immediately unseat NVIDIA as the dominant player in the global AI chip market.
Right. Dethroning NVIDIA is a tall order. It sounds like Huawei still faces some pretty significant obstacles then. What are some of the key challenges highlighted in the report?
Yeah, there are several key ones. First, as we've discussed, the performance limitations compared to the H100, particularly in areas like memory technology and, crucially, the maturity of their software ecosystem. That's a big one.
Okay.
Second, scaling up production. Actually making enough of these things. They seem to have ambitious targets that the report mentions, aiming for over 800,000 units in 2025.
800,000? That's a lot.
It's a massive undertaking, especially given potential supply chain complexities. And of course, you can't ignore the ongoing geopolitical tensions and the U.S. sanctions. They add this constant layer of complexity and uncertainty to their supply chain and market access outside China.
So, looking ahead, putting it all together, what are the future prospects for the Ascend 910D? And what broader trends might it signify for the tech world?
Well, the Ascend 910D is clearly a strategic move. It's about lessening China's reliance on chip imports, particularly from the U.S. That seems undeniable. The fact that they're planning to start testing it with Chinese companies, I think the report said late May of 2025, that shows a real push to get it into real-world applications soon.
Getting it out there.
Right. And while it represents clear progress, analysts do caution that truly catching up to NVIDIA, in terms of both raw performance and overall efficiency, that could take many years. It's a marathon, not a sprint. From a geopolitical perspective, though, the emergence of the 910D is a significant development. It's a marker in the global tech competition. It may be hints at a possible splitting or bifurcation of technology ecosystems down the line.
The tech decoupling, yeah.
Could be. It certainly underscores China's determination to build its own independent, self-sufficient AI infrastructure.
The Huawei Ascend 910D is certainly a fascinating example, isn't it? Technological ambition meeting these really complex geopolitical realities head-on. And while it clearly sets its sights on challenging the leaders like NVIDIA, the road ahead involves navigating some considerable technical, competitive, and strategic hurdles. The report we've explored today, the one authored by Jörg-Owe, it really brings to light the complexities and nuances of this whole evolving landscape. Ultimately, the success of the Ascend 910D, it's going to hinge not just on its technical capabilities, but also on these larger dynamics, the global AI market, the ever-shifting landscape of international technology relations. We hope this deep dive, drawing from Jörg-Owe's report, has given you a much clearer picture of this really important development.